Okay, as previously mentioned, this is the Acton Select Board. We are all here. I've already called the meeting to order, but we took a break in between our executive session and now because people expect the meeting to start at 7. So here we are at 7, and we're resuming our regular deliberations. We start these meetings with resident concerns because as elected officials, it's really important to hear from the people that voted for us and the people that live in town. At the same time, we have a really big agenda. So as usual, I'll be limiting the comments to 3 minutes, and the clerk will be holding up a piece of paper, a yellow piece of paper at the end of 2 minutes and a red piece of paper at the end of 3 minutes, and then it's my job to have you stop. Having said all that, are there people with resident concerns? Looks like there's one online, so why don't we go ahead? Hey, Matt, you want to let the one person speak?
Yes. This is from a call-in user. They should be able to speak now and identify themselves.
Hi, this is Tara from up here on Mass Ave. I have a comment and a question regarding the bond. Will there be a chance to ask a couple questions about that during the bond part of the meeting?
Yes, we'll be making a decision, so a public comment is called for.
Great, thank you. So relative to my comment, I was out petitioning this weekend, and someone stopped by to talk to me who I think went away unsatisfied. So I'm just giving a little shout out to them. They were concerned because I said that the petition I was gathering signatures for is non-binding, and they were concerned that this meant that their vote doesn't count. And so I was just, they walked away because other people were coming up. And so I just wanted people to know that even if a town meeting article is non-binding, that the select board tends to be very responsive to people, the town meeting votes. And so I don't think that your vote doesn't count. So just because it was non-binding, I said non-binding, didn't mean that I thought your vote didn't count. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And also, I still have a little time left. I'm afraid of the Dover Heights being part of the MBTA zoning. I want to protect the Dover Heights people from potential gentrification, and I hope you have an opportunity to talk about that at some point. Thank you.
Thank you. Other resident concerns?
Hi there, Miriam Lezak, High Street in Acton. More of a question. Can somebody give me a ballpark figure as to how much this 15-minute special town meeting will cost? Thank you.
We will get back to you on that unless the town manager has an answer right at the top of his head, but we usually don't answer questions right away. Thanks for turning off the microphone. Okay, we'll research that and get back to you. Any other resident concerns? No, okay, let's get on with the agenda. And there'll be chances for public comment on things that we're making decisions about. The first part of business after resident concerns is called Chair Update, Town Manager Update, and Members Minute. And I took a couple of notes, so let me start up my machine and I will tell you what I meant to say. Okay, this agenda is probably a little too long. I looked at it again late this afternoon, and it's adding up to more time than I'd like to ask my fellow board members to stay here. So, like usual, we'll check in with each other if the clerk can remind me when it hits 10 p.m. Or when we finish an agenda item and it's after 10 p.m. Then we can have a brief discussion about what's next. Depending on the urgency of the remaining items, we may also be having a quick conversation about having an extra meeting, perhaps next Monday night. So if you want to think about whether next Monday night could possibly work for you for a meeting, you could get ready for that. What else? Tomorrow night, March 19, Right here in room 204, the Planning Board will be considering their recommendations about the 4 major zoning-related articles that are moving towards being on the warrant. The South Acton Village Plan, an MBTA zoning bylaw, the zoning change to make car dealerships require a special permit, and the Powder Mill Road changes that Maynard and Acton have been working on. The calendar entry on the website has the agenda, and the agenda has a link for more information. You might want to attend to speak to these proposals that night, or you might want to go to learn more in advance of town meeting. Either way, it's an annual event not to be missed. That's all I got. Mr. Manager?
Thank you. I have a few brief announcements. The Acton Police Department is running their Citizens Police Academy again. It starts April 2nd. It's an 8-week program with classes in the evenings. We encourage people to check it out. You can sign up online, or if you have any questions about it, contact the police department or my office. But it's April 2nd is right around the corner, so if you're interested, please sign up soon. Speaking of the police department, I'm excited to announce that Anna Dobkas has been assigned as our new school resource officer, who will be working with the schools. She is a detective with the department. She's been on the department for about 11 years, and she has some really interesting skills and experience that she'll bring to this role, and we're excited to have her take that on and look forward to introducing her to the community. I wanted to mention that the Select Board reviewed its goals, I think at the last meeting or a few meetings ago, and since that time, I've updated the memo that I had originally provided in October, just to give some more current information, and I shared that with the board within the last week or so. We can add that to the packet for tonight's meeting and extra information, just so if members of the public are interested in the update on those goals, they can check that out there. I wanted to make sure that people are following the voter registration and the different ballot application deadlines that are being announced through the town clerk's office. That's all available on the website, or you can call town hall if you have any questions about that. I also wanted to mention that the federal government recently announced that the ARPA, American Rescue Plan Act funding, needs to be not just allocated by the end of this calendar year, but it actually has to be contracted. And so we're preparing for the board an update on all the ARPA projects that were approved, and many that are completed or near completed, and some that may or may not meet that deadline. And we'll bring that to the board at a future meeting for you to discuss and weigh in on some potential alternative ways to move forward. I wanted to mention that 17 Woodbury Lane had its public hearing with the Historic District Commission last week. I think it went pretty well. They're looking at the windows to see if they can be preserved. I wanted to thank Sharon Mercurio and the Council on Aging for collaborating with ActonTV to get the Drive with John program broadcast live. Last Friday was the second time that we did it live, and I think it went pretty well. There was a full room in the senior center, and I'm sure there were hundreds and maybe thousands of people watching from home, if I had to guess. And just wanted to mention that we're seeking comments on the West Acton Village Complete Streets designs. We had an open house earlier this month, and there's a survey and there's information on the website. A lot of different concepts for how to make that area safer for pedestrians, cyclists, and drivers. So please check that out and provide any comments if you have any. Thank you.
Thanks so much, John. Let's see, along the table, Alyssa, any?
Thank you. I wanted to remind everyone that the Acton Water District's annual meeting is this Wednesday, March 20th at the R.J. Gray Junior High. It starts at 6 p.m. Tomorrow is the deadline to submit comments in support of ranked choice voting, which passed at our annual town meeting last year here in Acton, as well as 6 other communities in the state. You can send an email of support to the Joint Committee on Election Laws, the chairs, Senator John Keenan and Representative Daniel Ryan. You can also email your legislators. The Citizens Library Governance Structure Advisory Committee will be holding its first meeting next week on the 26th at 3:30 in the afternoon in room 9. Yesterday, right here in this room, there were dozens of snakes for the Acton Conservation Trust's annual meeting, and I just wanted to let everybody know that the land steward for Great Hill, John Watlington, was awarded the Carol Hawley Conservation Award at that meeting. And one last announcement, for folks who are interested in learning more about the override, the operational override that's going to be on the ballot on April 30th and hopefully on the town meeting warrant on May 6th, sorry. David and I will be holding some office hours here at Town Hall in Room 9 this Thursday, March 21st at 3 p.m. until 5 p.m. and also on Saturday, April 6th from 9 until 11 a.m. Same room, Room 9 right here in Town Hall.
Thanks. David?
Were all the snakes accounted for at the end? Okay. I don't have anything today, except I'd like to say that there are 12 people online.
Thank you for starting that habit after we discussed it last time. Hello, 12 people out there in Zoom land. Fran?
I don't have anything.
Dean?
A couple of items. Yesterday, the Acton Lions Club hosted a St. Patrick's Day dinner at the Senior Center. We had over 90 seniors there. And as we all know, St. Patrick drove all the snakes out of Ireland, so obviously they came here. So that was a great event, collaboratively with the Lions Club and the Council on Aging. The Acton 250, we now have a merchandising webpage that you can find your way to through the Town of Acton website. So there's a number of commemorative items that are available for sale there. We just rolled that out about a week or so ago. T-shirts, hats, glassware, really nice little lapel pins. So the portion of the proceeds from all the sales will go to support the speakers, programs, and the other events for the Acton 250. And along the same lines, the next speaker program for the Acton 250 committee will be John Bell on April 2nd, talking about his book, The Road to Concord. That will be April 2nd at 7 o'clock here in this room. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. The next item is called Announce the Colonel Francis Falkner Sr. Exemplary Volunteer of the Year Award nominees. The big event related to this award is going to be May 16th at 6 p.m. in the Memorial Library meeting room. And at that time, you'll have a chance, the winners will have a chance to say more. We'll have a chance to say more about them. But for now, let's at least have each board member announce their Exemplary Volunteer Award winner. So let's see. For example, I'm proud to have one of these awards go to Franny Osman. Why don't we take it from left to right this time?
My award will go to Ellen Feinstein, who has served on the Council on Aging Board and the Nursing Services Advisory Committee.
Thanks.
My awardee is going to Janet Adachi. She's a chair of the ACHC and also has a past select board.
My awardee is Terry Maitland, longtime chair of the Conservation Commission and more recent co-chair of the Open Space Committee.
And I am very pleased to nominate Sampada Salunki, who is a trustee for the Memorial Library Board of Trustees.
Well, thanks so much to board members for thinking this through, and congratulations to the winners. And we'll be hearing more from you, and you'll be hearing more from us on May 16. Thank you. Okay, next is the only agenda item that takes 3 lines in the agenda. Vote to approve the issuance of $4,900,000 general obligation municipal purpose loan of 2024, as more particularly described in the document prepared by bond counsel distributed to the board. And I think we first to get, John, you want to take us through how we're going to learn about this?
Thank you. Yes, this is a lot of paperwork related to borrowing money, and our Director of Administration and Finance, Mary Ann Falkner, will walk you through with a brief presentation about what we're asking you to vote on and sign here tonight. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. So I am here on behalf of Teresa O'Leary. She is our treasurer-collector. She's on a well-deserved vacation day today, so I represent Teresa in the Finance Department. And just very quickly, quick summary, in early February, we worked with Lynn Welsh, who is our account executive at Unibank, and to prepare for our management meeting with Standard & Poor. We did have that management meeting on February 27th. It went very well. We're very fortunate. We were able to produce the documents that they requested and able to present our management stand and where we are, the town of Acton as a whole, from a financial status. We had received shortly thereafter our AAA rating, so we're very humbled, very proud of that. That helps, as you know, considerably when we go out to bond in our interest rate. So I believe you received a notice from John when we received that notice. That, again, very fortunate that we have the AAA rating. Shortly after that, they called out for the bond. We went out for a $4.9 million that represent 9 projects. And that call went out on March 6th. Again, we were very fortunate. We were well sought after. There were approximately 8 or 9 investors that were looking to buy from us the $4.9 million bond. And Bard, so Raymond James Bard is the holder, and it will be selling on March 28th. And so it went for 2.77%. Very pleased with that interest. Very happy with that. What we are asking of you tonight is, Dean, as the clerk, you have one document that you will be signing as the clerk, the votes for issuance, and then there are, that pile right there, exactly. There are other documents that all the select board members are requested to sign. We need 3 out of 5 signatures, but all of you are here, so we request that all of you sign as select board members.
There might be questions from the board, or is there more, Mary Ann, in your presentation?
That is it. One of the, like what you are signing is the certificate of issuance. You'll be signing the bond themselves, so it goes, so it's for 15 years. Again, there are 9 projects. I believe John had forwarded those to you. Some of them, 4 of the 9 started off as bans, bond authorization notes, and then we turn them over to this 4.9 over a period of years for each project, depending on the project. Some are 13 because they were banned for 2 years, for example. So that one, for example, would be 15 years. I can go over each one, but I think just a summary, you had received it from John already. So you'll be signing the certificate, you'll be signing the issuance, you'll be signing the actual bonds themselves as select board members tonight. And then on March 28th is when they are sold.
Great, thanks so much. There might be questions or comments from board members before I open it up to the public. No, seems like we're all understanding what we're about to do. Is there a formal vote that you need, or you just need our assent to sign all these things, or what?
So there is, in your packet, there's an email from John, and it starts off with vote to accept, and it's in your packet. And I think Tom is bringing it up. and right what is highlighted is vote to approve the issuance of the $4.9 million general obligation municipal purpose loan of 2024 bonds, and as more particularly described, which I just described, in the document prepared by bond counsel, distributed to the board.
Great, thank
And
you.
that was what we received, the wording from the bond counsel of how to state the vote tonight.
Okay, well, I would happily entertain that motion from any member of the board. Yeah, then before we actually vote, we'll listen to comments and questions from the public, but I want to get a motion on the table first.
I move to approve the issuance of $4,900,000 general obligation municipal purpose loan of 2024 bonds as more particularly described in the document prepared by bond counsel distributed to this board. I'll repeat it. I move to approve the issuance of $4,900,000 general obligation municipal purpose loan of 2024 bonds as more particularly described in the document prepared by bond counsel distributed to this board.
Second?
Okay, now we've got something moved and seconded. Are there any other questions from the board or questions or comments from the public? Okay, looks like there's one question online, Matt, if you can let them speak.
Yes, Mr. Chair, this is the call-in user. I believe it's Tara, but they should be able to identify themselves.
Hi there, it's Tara again. I have, so my first question was answered, I believe, the 2.77%, which is really exciting. And I quickly went to my Affordable Housing Trust Excel sheet, and it looks like we might want to recalculate that to perhaps get some housing trust work going, especially if there's going to be a threat of displacement for zoning. And I would hope that we would do that before the price doubles or triples because of zoning. Thank you so much.
Thank you. There's a motion on the board. It's been seconded. All those in favor, please say yes or aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Okay, I saw yeses or ayes from everybody, so that's unanimous. And now, Dean, you want to like start signing things and send them down here, and we'll sign them during the meeting? Okay. If anybody has any weird, complicated questions while they're signing things, just let me know and we'll get them answered. But we're on our way. Thanks so much for being here, Marianne.
Thank you.
Okay, the next topic is called Discuss Petition for Special Town Meeting. I think there's some information that I want to get out. There's some information from the town manager. We met along with town staff and the clerk and others this afternoon to discuss this further. John was also armed with advice from town council. So here's the basics. Our town charter allows for a petition to call a special town meeting. It requires 200 signatures. When that petition is filed, the board is required by law to have a special town meeting within 45 days. That 45 days we were initially sort of hoping and thinking without a lot of research that we could possibly have a little special town meeting at the beginning or middle of the regular town meeting. But no, 45 days doesn't take us till there. Town staff then looked at possible meeting dates and discovered that a good time to meet is during school vacation week, because then the auditorium is available. And I think John can tell us more about exactly where and when that could be if the board decided to go ahead and call that special meeting tonight. And again, if we do accept a motion to call this special meeting, I'll then allow public comment on this. So John, do you have any more the technical and logistical details that are relevant here?
Yeah, thank you. So with the things that are happening here in town over the next month and a half, there was only there was only 1 week that appeared to be available to hold a town meeting within the time frame, and so we identified the middle of the week during school vacation week. That Wednesday is the 17th, and that I believe is okay with the schools, okay with the moderator, and that's all we checked with so far, but we assume it's okay with the petitioners. And so that's when and where we would hold it. It would be in the auditorium, like other town meetings, and if the board calls it tonight, we could get started on the process that we're required to do for every town meeting. With every town meeting, there's a voter registration deadline. We have to mail the warrant out so many days beforehand, and we would be able to accomplish all of that if the date were to be set for the 17th.
Some other things that came up at that meeting that I found interesting were that Mark had found earlier examples of special town meetings with only one agenda item on them, and it looked like that could fit on a single double-sided page. Is that which makes it a little easier to mail out? Is that still true? Is that what it's
Yeah, I
looking
mean,
like?
the postage is the expense more
Yeah,
than
yeah.
the number of words, but yes, it certainly would, it's better than a big packet.
Okay. As context for any comments that board members might have, the petition itself is only 4 lines long, so I'll read it. We urge town leaders, before recommending any major zoning proposal, to perform left square bracket and release for public review, right square bracket, detailed impact studies which examine the maximum impact of such a proposed zoning proposal. There might be comments or questions from board members. No, not much. It does, go ahead.
I have a question.
Good. This is a good time for questions.
I understand the logistics of requiring another town meeting, but why? Is there a way that we could work it into our original town meeting? It just seems like a lot to do before town meeting. I can't think of a time where we did this in town, as long as I've been here, but maybe I just wasn't aware.
Well, we certainly had other special town meetings with only one item on them that came from a citizen petition. But maybe, John, maybe you can speak to any other knowledge you have about the legal requirements here.
Yeah, I think in order to comply with our bylaws and the documents that govern our community, we would have to call a town meeting within 45 days. We could choose not to do that and just have it within 55 days, but that would be not following our bylaws, so I'm not recommending that. I think it was put forward in the timing that it was intentionally, so that it would happen before town meeting, is my guess.
Do you think it would hurt attendance from either town meeting? Or one during vacation week is going to be very low attended, so I'm just curious.
So, yeah, it would be the first town meeting during that week that I'm familiar with, so I'm not sure who would be interested in going, but with the time constraints that we have on either end, I mean, we could probably have one next week, but that's not enough time to do it per the notice requirements. So it would be better to do it in May, but we have to do it before the end of April. So we have very limited options. So I think what the best course of action is to just follow the 45-day rule, call the meeting, conduct it as we normally would, and continue getting ready for the other big events that we have in the following weeks. I think in terms of what residents will receive their mailbox, would that be confusing? I don't know. I think we can maybe do our best to make it clear that this is not the town meeting warrant. This is another town meeting that's occurring before the town meeting, and so that doesn't create any unnecessary confusion for people. And that's something that we can work on as we finalize the documentation after the board calls it officially, and we'll move forward in that direction.
Thank you.
Other things that we explored Fran, was can the petitioner withdraw the petition? The answer, no. Now that it's been signed by more than 200 people, that petition is, represents them as well. And there's no provision, as far as we could see in the law, for individual signers to come up and say, I withdraw my signature. It's already been put in. It's already been recorded. So that's that. Dean.
Yeah, I'd just like to say I'm very frustrated by this. I believe one of the folks gathering signatures has done the same thing in the past at great expense to the town and great inconvenience to everyone. I've heard personally from a number of constituents who felt that the petition was misrepresented to them when they signed it at various grocery stores. Shame on them, I guess, for not actually reading and understanding something they're going to sign that somebody puts in your face in front of a grocery store. I don't think there's any way out of this. It's just very frustrating, and this is the ultimate in narcissism as far as I'm concerned. Thank you.
Thanks, Dean. David.
So I too have heard from people, maybe others on the board have too, for people who didn't understand that this was calling a special town meeting. That is because it's a little bit subtle on the form. And so a lot of people thought that they were just signing for an article for the annual town meeting, and didn't realize that they were calling a special town meeting. I mean, I agree with folks who said that this was done intentionally, right? If it was done 2 weeks earlier, it could have been on the annual town meeting. If it was done a week later, it could have been part of the annual town meeting. But that's not what was done. We've heard 2 references to cost. I was wondering if the town manager had an approximate number for cost.
So the cost, we would typically estimate the cost between $5,000 and $10,000 to run a town meeting, depending on, that's often for 2 nights. But we have to hire police details and pay for the school and do the postage, do the mailing, and there's also work that goes into it in addition to that in the clerk's office, staying open late for registrations, et cetera. So I think a good estimate is $5,000 to $10,000. We certainly didn't budget for that this year, but we will do what we can to make it work.
I appreciate the work on the part of staff to make this happen. Thank you.
Alyssa.
So I just want to add one thought for folks who are listening now or in the future. That's a little bit different from what we've heard about the language of the petition and whether it was misleading and the cost. I want to encourage everyone who would be inclined to petition the government to do so a lot earlier in the game. We just talked about town staff working to put on a town meeting. The staff have been working on some of these zoning articles for 2 years, and there was an incredible public engagement process. I went back and looked up Kristen Guichard, our planning director's original presentation to this board. It was 2 years ago, almost to the day, March 21st, 2022. So I absolutely agree that there is value to impact studies on zoning that's coming before town meeting voters. But the time to demand them, to request them, to organize other residents to join you in doing that is during the public engagement process. Absolutely, it's within citizens' rights to call a special town meeting with a petition with 200 signatures. But as far as not putting yourself into the position of people being disappointed or frustrated or feeling misled, but to join you in getting what you want, which is an impact study for zoning changes, there has been a number of opportunities. I think the only zoning change that we're bringing to this town meeting that hasn't had that runway is the car dealership. But there was still a couple of months, in a survey and meetings where we discussed it. So please, email, create websites, come and speak at select board meetings and at other public engagement and other committee meetings where this is discussed. Call town hall, stop in town hall and talk to staff.
Thank you. I'm wondering about the board's appetite for a motion that would set this town meeting, in process. If I hear some nods, I'm happy to read the draft motion. Nods. I'm not sure where people are at in the morning process, whether we're still in denial or whether we're, at anger or what. But David.
I think to meet the printing requirements and everything, we might be able to delay to the next meeting, but that's not obvious to me. And so I think we either do it now or we miss school vacation week. So I'm in favor of just setting the date. Also, I think it's helpful to everybody to know when it is.
Okay, well, let me bring this motion up again. We can get it read and we can then get comment from the audience and from the select board about it. Yeah, sorry. I wonder if there's anything we can do with the volume in the room. Is there anything technical we can do? Okay. I feel like I'm swallowing it, but that's okay. We'll do what we can. Sorry that you haven't been able to hear everything. So this motion would be a motion to call a special town meeting on April 17, 2024 at 7 p.m. at the Acton Boxborough Regional High School as required to vote on the non-binding article submitted as a citizen petition signed by more than 200 registered voters on March 14, 2024.
So moved.
Is there? Matt, we're not hearing you. Are you out there? Can you let someone speak?
My apologies, my internet cut out for a second there. Charlie Cadlick?
Great.
Charlie, you should be able to speak.
Yes, this is Charlie Cudlick. I just want to add my name to the comments that already been made about this being a waste of time, waste of money. It's a non-binding resolution which effectively does nothing. It's a total waste of time and money. I hope I know there is no way to prevent having to hold a special town meeting, but it should be made clear by everybody this is not what was the intent of the law that controls it. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. Any residents in the room want to make a comment?
Tom Beals, Willow Street. My recollection from the last special town meeting, the moderator or the question was asked about the cost. My recollection was that it was $15K at that time. I wonder if there is a way, without discouraging citizens' petitions or citizen participation, to change the bylaw such that the process is made more available, more consistent with the town's logistics, whether the mechanics of that, I would ask the board to comment on. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Yes, a couple of other people are coming forward. Come on down.
Good evening, Adrian Hancock from Guswood Road. I signed this petition because I believe that any discussion is good discussion and should take place. There should be an outlet for all points of interest. I admit that I'm guilty of not reading the introduction, the header, sufficiently carefully. That header said citizen petition for a special town meeting for a non-binding resolution. Since all the paperwork that's submitted to the town talks about holding a meeting, I did not get the alert that a meeting was proposed and would have to be held. It sounds as though there's nothing we can do about it, but I would strongly suggest in future that the wording be used to make it very clear that by supporting the content, you're also supporting that, or the petitioners are asking us to support that we go to the extent of holding a meeting and paying for it. Because I think this is a very expensive privilege to allow for something which is a non-binding comment. I made these comments in note to the board, and thank you for listening.
Thank you.
I had all sorts of ideas, most of which are illegal, which is unfortunate. The best one, I think, is to make the petitioner pay for it. But we can't do that, which is unfortunate because I think, as Dean said, it's a narcissistic move on the part of the petitioner. I would like there to be a true accounting of the costs of the mailing, the printing, the police, the clerk, and all that sort of stuff, so everyone knows how much money is being wasted on this. And the fact that the 45-day bylaw is in place, I think Tom has a good idea that we should change that so that it would be with a annual town meeting. Then my other point is I think that we should probably have a fall town meeting to do zoning. I've been on the powder mill plan for 3 years. We have done impact statements on the powder mill plan. If anybody likes to read them, they're there. There are also impact statements on the MBTA and South Acton, and we have studied it until it comes out your ears. I just think that this is such a waste of time and such a waste of our energy and our funds. And since we're in such a tight budget year, I find it really quite reprehensible.
Thanks. And there's another comment online, Matt?
Yes, this is from a call-in user. I believe it's Tara from earlier, but they should be able to speak now.
Yes, hi. I did a lot of the petitioning on this special town meeting warrant article, and in every sentence I start with, will you sign to have a special town meeting? And then I would say what it was about. Every single time, every single time. Secondly, it's not about the town charter. Please check state law. As far as I know, this was done under state law, not the charter, but either way. In terms of impact studies, I've been to all these meetings. I have reviewed all this documentation. There is no count of condos. In fact, the planning board asked Kristen to tell them how many condos will be created, and she couldn't tell them. So is it 1,000? Is it 5,000? I have no idea. So impact studies examine these issues. They don't just present one side of what all the things that could happen. We could have restaurants. We could have this. We could have affordability. It's not just the upside. That's what's been presented in all of these documents. What about the downside? What is the impact on the water? What is the impact to tenants? So Dover Heights, 72, I count, families, low-income families the landlord would change, the landowner, we could possibly change the economic calculations to incentivize them to evict these folks. I know town says that in answer to this for the impact study on the tenants is that the property owner doesn't have any plans to do that. Well, what about the day after town meeting? The plans change when they're faced or they're offered millions of dollars more because they can put 25 units an acre. I feel like this is a really good idea to have this before the actual vote, not the day of when the select board can change the order and have it be the second day after the zoning votes, but actually before, so people can decide if they want the information. The town can do a lot of this, maybe all of it for free, just if they assign the staff to put the information together. If they can calculate how many square feet, they can calculate how many units maximum. Thank you. Oh, also, oh no, I already said that. Thank you.
Thanks. Matt, there's a couple more people online who would like to say something.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Next up is Franny Osmond. Franny, you should be able to speak.
Yes, hi. You might, I just wanted to note that, just as a reminder to everybody, that this is not an immediate, we will see all of these condos. This is just what is allowed in the certain areas for the MBTA zoning. And people often don't realize that even what zoning they have. What I wanted to note about this, and maybe you said it, is it possible for the person who organized the petition to rescind it? I might have missed that.
Sadly, no.
Okay. Thanks.
Thanks. And Matt, there's another person.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Charlie Kedlick. Charlie, you should be able to speak.
Yeah, just to repeat, this is a non-binding resolution. Even if it's approved at the special town meeting, the select board and the town management doesn't have to do anything that is called for in that petition. It's a useless piece of information, means nothing, proves nothing, will accomplish nothing. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. And then was there another comment in the room?
Jane Moosebroker, 40 Brewster Lane. I've been involved in this process too. I've gotten some of the signatures. There are actually over 400 signatures. I've gotten some of them, and I was not as clear as Tara about what this was, so I apologize to my fellow Democratic Committee members that I might not have explained it as well, and they are unhappy that they signed it. My concern about it is that the town would push for the MBTA mandate coming from the governor without having as much affordable housing as is really wanted in this petition. It says 10%. That's ridiculous. If we want to get out of this the kind of diversity and multi-purpose housing, it would have to be 90% affordable. I worked as a conservation chair commission in Bolton for many years. I worked with a lot of developers. There were a few good ones. Most of them just wanted to make a big profit. And if this isn't controlled carefully, that's what will happen. We won't have affordable housing. We'll have very expensive housing. And unless we know, I live in South Acton, so I'm most concerned about this part of the development. I know there are people concerned about Powder Mill. Despite the studies, they still have concerns. I want to know what the effect is going to be on our water and sewage system. I know we're at the end, maybe with our sewage possibilities. I know that South Acton has less water than the other parts of town and more PFAS in our water. The traffic can be terrible at certain times. I've only been here 6 years, so I'm not as smart about some of this as some of you, and I'm sorry if a lot of people feel that this is a terrible thing. But the idea of discussing it before the regular town meeting is for people to come and learn about what it's all about before they get kind of pressured into voting for it. You know, 6 or 7 towns have looked at this, and half of them have rejected it. I've been following what's been going on in Milton. I think the MBTA mandate is more heart than head. I think it's a very good idea that came from the governor, from her heart. It's not worked out. There's not enough head in it. That's mostly why I got involved in this, and I'm sorry if I'm causing some of you pain.
Thank you, Jane. With no more comment, we do have a motion in front of us that's been moved and seconded. And there's a little bit of follow-up after that, depending on how the vote goes. So this motion to have a special town meeting, how says the board? Aye or nay?
Aye.
Aye.
Reluctantly, aye.
Okay. Sadly, we don't have a category for reluctant aye, so that would be a unanimous 5-0 vote. I think there are some matters that would assist the town staff in preparing for this. But let me ask John about the timing of these things. It could be that a recommendation from the board would be helpful to publish with the warrant, and I don't know if that can wait 2 weeks. The other thing would be to have what's the other thing on the paper? A select board member assigned. I don't know if either of these can wait, or whether it's okay or whether we should be deciding those tonight.
If the board were to designate someone to speak on behalf of the board on this article, that would be helpful. And the select board and the finance committee would have to usually would put a recommendation in the warrant, so that we can accomplish that, I think, before we print it. So that recommendation can probably wait till next week, or next meeting, which is April 1st. And both things can wait, sorry.
That's great. Then it'll be I think, better from us from a process point of view to wait, so that the public is aware that this is where we're making our recommendation in case they want to weigh in one way or the other. So I think we're done with this item unless there's any final questions or comments. Okay, thank you. Please go ahead.
Hi, thank you, Jim. Pat Clifford, Old Barn Way. Will this warrant take any other items, or is this an open and closed warrant tonight?
Thank you for asking that question. I was supposed to talk about that. We talked about the notion of having no other items on this, but I'm a little unclear on what we're required to do in that regard. Mr. Manager, you have any guidance for us? Can we open and close the warrant, over the course of the next few minutes, or what?
I recommend that you call this as a special town meeting for a one-issue meeting, and I don't see the town adding any articles, so I think you could say that it's closed, just for technicalities. Sure.
Okay, yeah, and that seems consistent with the motion we took, which was we were calling the special meeting to vote on this non-binding article. Are there any select board members with concerns about the notion of proceeding with not having an open warrant period in which other articles can be submitted? No, okay. Then that's the way we're going to do it. That's the way we're interpreting the vote, and thanks for asking. Thanks for asking, Pat.
And just to clarify, the warrant will appear exactly as it was presented to the petitioners, so that we can get started on that tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
And if you need any, summary material or anything like that, I'm sure you'll be in touch with the petitioner about that.
Yeah, it's our option whether to include that. I'm not sure that we would in this case, given the limited space we have on the document, but it's up to whatever the board wants.
So the board, this question is, if we allow the petitioner to write some sentences that describe the article, that may increase the turnout. It may have people be informed. It may or may not be helpful. So I'm happy to hear any guidance from the from the board about whether they would like to have offer any summary sentences in this warrant. David?
So this article is pretty short. I don't think it needs a summary. And in fact, it only means what it says. Any summary is not what it says, right? So I think we should just leave it as is. And of course, they can, moderator, up to the moderator, of course, but I presume that they'd be able to make a presentation at town meeting.
Yeah, that's consistent with what we heard, yeah. The other note that I heard about that in an earlier discussion today was that the petition form itself gives room for background information, and that wasn't filled out. So that's apparently consistent with the intent of the petitioner. Okay, so we will unless I hear objections from the board, I'm going to go ahead and direct the town manager to not include a summary. But wait, there's a comment.
Wait, I'm sorry, it's Ian Chang again. Are you going to have a lead selectman to, okay, I would like to suggest that the lead selectman not be a petition signer, please.
Makes sense. We'll have that on our agenda for the April 1st meeting, and if people want to look in their hearts and minds and decide if they want to be the respondent, we'll figure that out then. Alyssa?
So I understand the reasoning behind not including a summary from the petitioner. I'm wondering what kind of information from the town to ensure that there's not confusion about what this special town meeting is, that it's not annual town meeting. Besides the title, special town meeting, I'm hoping that there can be some sort of introductory paragraph that leads people to understand what it is that they have just received in the mail.
John, you have a thought about that?
Would you be comfortable with us using the opportunity to mention that there is an annual town meeting on May 6th and including that in the mailing? That would, I think, accomplish what you're
Yes,
suggesting.
and I think in addition, just for people who are going to receive this, who aren't familiar with the process, maybe they just moved here, we received a petition that was signed by 200 people requesting a special town meeting to see if the town would vote for this non-binding resolution, just so people understand why should I go.
Yeah, that's consistent with the draft I saw from previous special town meetings. It's clear that it's a citizen's petition. David?
So the warrant obviously has opening language. In the annual town meeting warrant, it's many, many pages. And so I would suggest that we use those pages to describe how we got here and that the fact that the annual town meeting happens next time. You can decide whether if that can be drafted and reviewed by us next time or what, or whether, usually staff just prepares that. So, and anyway, whatever you want to do, but I think that the opening part of the warrant can say, the purpose behind and what the long-term ramifications are. Not having to do with the article, just the purpose behind the meeting.
Alyssa, there's a comment on that?
So I understood that, but I also heard that it could possibly be a one-pager, not several. But maybe that's not possible because maybe you need to get all of the maps of where to park at the high school. I don't know.
No, we were assured that this could be done in a single page, with links for more information.
May I speak?
Yes, sure. We're thinking about little micro decisions. I'd be happy to have your
Right,
input
we
on
have
those.
actually prepared a two-page summary, which has not been submitted yet, which I thought would go out with the warrant. I also have given you a very short summary in a message I sent to you yesterday. So it could be, I think something of the thought behind this should go into the warrant, or people will not understand what the heck they're doing. I agree with Alyssa. Thank you.
So I think the notion that Jane is bringing forward is to take the letter that we got from Jane where she described the purpose of it and put that in a couple of sentences. It doesn't quite seem consistent with what I heard from the board, but I'm happy to entertain ideas about that. David?
Again, I would oppose having the summary in there. The summary is not the article, and the article is the article, right? And they can make their presentation at town meeting. 2 pages of information to describe what 1 or 2 sentences says is not correct. I mean, the summary makes sense for a zoning article that's 7 pages. Having 2 paragraphs to describe 7 pages makes sense. Or a summary of an appropriation article as to what it covers, but I think it doesn't make sense here.
Okay, that's the sense I'm hearing, so I'm going to proceed that way. Yeah. I think that may be it for the special town meeting, or are there more online? Okay. Yeah, we've been entertaining comment here. Matt, there's someone online who wants to say something.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I believe this was Tara from earlier, but it is a call-in user who should be able to speak now.
Hi, yes, this is Tara. It was my understanding, or it has been my understanding since I've done this before, that the proponent always gets to put a summary in. I thought that that seemed a reasonable thing. I would help get that down to a paragraph or 2. I didn't see Jane's, or maybe I did, I don't know. I certainly don't recall what it was she wrote if I saw it. But it's my understanding that there's a summary always, and it would seem unfair, especially with somebody who's new to the process, because I didn't think to ask anybody about whether that policy had changed so as to tell Jane. But it's always been a tradition. I've done these before. The summary goes out with the warrant, with the article, the petitioner and the proponent, because I've asked if I can do it in opposition to some warrant articles, and they said, no, it's always the proponent. The proponent gets to put a summary in. So that's would be a change in tradition. But I'm sensitive to the 1-page idea, and I would help Jane accommodate that.
Thanks. So I'm clear that at the annual town meeting, we do include summaries of all the items. It's a multi-page booklet. It's the annual town meeting where we have all this information. But what I'm hearing from my fellow board members is this is a special town meeting, and the article itself is is self-explanatory. It's just 2 sentences. If there's more to say about it, that can be said during a presentation at the meeting. There's also in the article, as it will be published, it was the contact information for Jane. So her email and her phone will also be available for people to call and write to if they have questions. So I think we'll have plenty of ways of getting information out. Okay, the next item is number 6, approved proclamation for Arbor Day, April 26, 2024. If you guys are going to talk outside. Thank you. Back to Arbor Day. So trees, we're in favor of trees. Unless the board has an objection, I'd like Mr. Charter to read this proclamation so we can enjoy it. And then we'll have a quick formal vote on it.
All right, thank you. So the proclamation. Whereas in 1872, the Nebraska Board of Agriculture established a special day to be set aside for the planting of trees, and whereas this holiday called Arbor Day was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, and whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and whereas trees can be a solution to combating climate change by reducing the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cutting heating and cooling costs, moderating the temperature, cleaning the air, producing life-giving oxygen, and providing habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And whereas trees in our city increases property values, enhances the economic vitality of business areas, and beautifies our community. And whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Therefore, we, the Select Board of the Town of Acton, do hereby proclaim Friday, April 26, 2024, as Arbor Day in the Town of Acton. And we urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and to support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands. And further, I urge all citizens to plant trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generations.
I move to issue the proclamation as read by Selectman Charter.
Second.
Any other comments? No? All those in favor, please say yes or aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous.
And there are 13 people online.
Yes, okay, then there are 13 people online. Of course.
I
Ask a
was
question.
curious whether there would be a distribution of trees again this year, as there was last year.
Mr. Manager, you have any info on that?
You mean the saplings that he put in the back of the pickup truck?
No, I mean the tiny trees that were available at the transfer station on tables.
Yeah,
with the
those are
big
the same ones, yeah.
banners.
They
Oh,
do that, he does it every year, I expect he'll do it again.
Wonderful.
Come on down.
Great, thank you. Oh, I put two proclamations in a row, but that system kind of seemed to work, so let's do this again. Approved proclamation for Acton Garden Club. And Mr. Charter, do you have that one as well?
I do.
Okay, let's go for it.
If I'd known I was going to have to read it, I would have been a little shorter in my four. And whereas the club has maintained the herb garden at the Acton Arboretum since 1986, and whereas the club continues to maintain planters and other beauty spots in the various villages of Acton, and whereas the club, through its monthly meetings, has educated its members in sustainable design of plantings that will have a positive impact on our environment, and whereas the club, through its annual plant sale, have provided an opportunity for the public to purchase locally grown and native plant material at a reasonable price, and whereas this year the Acton Garden Club has undertaken a complete reconstruction of the Ellipse Garden in front of Town Hall to be dedicated on May 1st, 2024, and whereas as far back as 1936, the club was described as, quote, one of the outstanding organizations of civic achievement in the town, unquote. 90 years later, the club continues to help keep the town of Acton a beautiful community in which to live. Let it be known the Select Board of the town of Acton, Massachusetts, recognize the dedicated and professional work of the Acton Garden Club and congratulates them on their 90th anniversary. Resolved on this day, March 18th, 2024.
I move that we issue the proclamation as read by Mr. Charter.
Second.
Beautiful proclamation, Dean. Thanks for not skimping on it. It was great to relearn all that stuff about what amazing work the club has done over the 90 years. We have a motion that's been moved and seconded. Any other comment about it before we, no? All those in favor, please say yes or aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous.
Do we
Thank you,
know
Acton
what
Garden Club.
time this dedication on May 1st is happening?
Pardon me?
Do you know what
Do
time?
we know what time this dedication on May 1st is?
I believe it's about 10 a.m.
Thank you.
Don, I had the notion that you were about to, no, okay, never mind. Reading too much into the body language. Thank you. Okay, the next item, number 8, discuss potential tax incremental financing plan, or TIF, for those of you out there who like abbreviations, for natural Stonewall solutions at 42 Knox Trail. John, you want to lead us into this?
Yes, thank you. We have been approached by a local business owner and the state office of, Mass Office of Business Development regarding a potential tax increment financing program to help support its local business growth. The business owner is here from Natural Stonewall Solutions. Also, we have on the Zoom Kevin Kuros from Mass Office of Business Development, and I think we'd like to, and Julie Pierce, our Economic Development Director, and Catherine Yusoff, the Economic Development Committee Chair, are all here to answer any questions that may come up. But we wanted to present this to the board to see if you're interested in support moving forward towards town meeting, which would be required, and other work leading up to it. But if we could start first with Kevin from MOBD, just with a brief overview of what this program is.
We saw you briefly, and then we saw a TIF mechanic screen. Are you there?
There we go.
Great.
Can you all hear me?
Absolutely.
Great, thanks so much. So Jolie had asked me to spend a minute or two to talk about the Economic Development Incentive Program that our office manages, and then specifically the mechanics of the TIF component of that program. So the Mass Office of Business Development, for those of you who may not be familiar with us, is the state's official economic development agency. So we report to Secretary Yvonne Howe, who is the Secretary of Economic Development. And our primary function is to support the Economic Development Incentive Program, or EDIP, by its acronym. And that program has two components that are used to encourage capital investment, job retention and job creation, and economic development. And essentially, the first component is a local component where a municipality can work with a business owner, and in exchange for capital investment and job creation, might offer some relief from the incremental tax liability that results from their capital investment. And the reason I asked just to show this one graphic is to kind of explain exactly what that means. So is the graphic displaying on the screen now? I'm seeing it from my side. I just don't know if you and folks who are watching from home can see it.
Yeah, absolutely. We're seeing the TIF agreement mechanics with parts 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
All right. Okay, very good. So on a given parcel in town, in any community, that light blue area at the bottom where it says property taxes before investment, that is in effect the property tax revenue that's being generated for a particular today. Okay, any particular parcel in town, if you take a snapshot of it, that's what it would look like. Okay, the triangular gray area, number 2 above that, baseline growth, that is in effect your annual 2.5% increase that would come about as a result of Prop 2.5, just typical growth in the tax revenue for a parcel over time. Okay, and that continues on on an upward trend. And then the green box to the left there, number 3, that demonstrates new capital investment that new assessed value that comes about as a result of capital investment that a business makes in a parcel. For example, in the case of a greenfield where it's just mostly an open field, not collecting a lot of revenue, and then you put a building up on it, and then the assessor comes through, reassesses the parcel. So that reassessed value is essentially at the top of that green bar on the left-hand side there. So that would be the new assessed value that comes about as a result of the capital investment that a business makes, okay? And then just as your baseline value increases over time, i.e. that blue box with the triangle above it, the baseline growth, the growth would also continue onward and upward for the new assessed value. So essentially you're bumping up the assessed value of the parcel, and then that normal, whatever, 2.5% per year growth would continue on, okay? So through the tax increment financing program, a municipality can negotiate with a business owner. Excuse me one sec. Sorry about that. I'm working from home and we just had dogs barking here. So through the TIF program, a municipality can negotiate with the business owner to offer some relief on the incremental tax liability that came about as a result of their capital investment. So what that means is at no time would the community ever collect less taxes than they are currently collecting, okay? But what the incentive offers is rather than charging or collecting the full tax liability that could be collected after the capital investment in the property, that there's some negotiated reduction in tax collection for a period of years, okay? TIF agreements have to be at least 5 years long, and they can be up to 20 years long. Most typical is 10, okay? And then the community can offer anywhere from 5% relief up to 100% relief on that incremental value only. So again, we're not talking about touching any of the revenue that's already coming into the community. In effect, I always like to say it's agreeing to accept less more or less additional tax revenue for a particular parcel. It's one of the few tools that a community can use to, kind of shout from the rooftops that they're business friendly. It certainly is a tool that communities will use to encourage development in their community as opposed to a Dame Regan community or, across the border and into New Hampshire, et cetera. But also a very important component. I started off my comments by saying that the Economic Development Incentive Program has two components, a local component and a state component. If indeed a community offers an incentive to a business in the form of a TIF, the business can also apply for credits towards their corporate tax liability. So it goes from just being a two-way partnership between the business and the community to a three-way partnership between the business, the community, and the Commonwealth. So the business brings capital investment and job creation. The community provides some level of property tax relief, and then the state provides relief towards the corporate tax liability that the business may, owe the Commonwealth. Our tax credits are going to be tied to job creation. So in this particular project, I believe Troy has indicated he plans on creating probably at least 20 additional jobs on top of the 30 or however many he already has in town over the next 5 years. So that's 20 additional people coming to town and shopping locally, filling up their cars, eating at the restaurants, those types of things. So the Commonwealth recognizes that, and we would provide a tax incentive most likely for those jobs. And my last comment I'll leave with you all is in many cases, and I would believe it would be the case for this particular project, the incentive that the state provides can often be larger and sometimes significantly larger than the benefit being provided at the local level. So, unfortunately, we at this time, the program doesn't support the state providing incentives without some local involvement. So oftentimes, a TIF is viewed as opening up the keys or providing the keys to the state incentive bucket. So that's essentially what I wanted to share with you all tonight. Happy to answer any questions.
Thanks so much, Kevin. Are there any questions right now for Kevin, or should we move on and hear the rest of the presentation? Or okay, let's move on. Like maybe we can hear from you about your business and the special things you're looking to do going forward. We've heard a little bit about this in the past, and it's great to have you back again.
Yeah, thank you. So again, Troy Ginther, and I'm the owner of Natural Stonewall Solutions. I think Kevin just did a great presentation on what we're applying for and what I hope to work with the town on. I think the key components were our existing site was a plot of land, just unused. So of the buckets that are required for a TIF is a manufacturing. You're taking land, you're taking capital, and so I think we meet all those requirements. So I'm excited to hopefully have a negotiation with the town. And another key component is that we are a profitable company, and that allows us to fill that bucket with dealing with the state for some future breaks there, and in the main goal of bringing in full-time employees to the town. You know, I've got a long-running history. I've lived in town for the majority of my life. I've run 2 companies. We've been out of this facility or this area for over 25 years, and hope to keep everyone here and keep growing.
Thank you so much. There might be questions or comments from the board, but if there aren't any right away, then we often rely in these kinds of questions on our Economic Development Committee, and I wondered if you, Catherine, if you wanted to say anything or just sort of remind us what the letter was from the EDC, that might really help us in our deliberations.
Sure, thank you. Excuse me. So the EDC would like the select board to support the town's negotiation with Natural Stonewall Solutions to provide a local TIF. And our primary reason for wanting to support this is the investment that they've made in the company, $2 million in this new manufacturing facility. We heard a presentation from one of Kevin's colleagues and understand that growing the manufacturing base in the state is extremely important and certainly should be important to us in Acton. What people need to understand is that this is a good incentive for companies because it does increase our commercial tax base ultimately, and increases it right away because this, our understanding is that the proposal is not for 100% TIF, so there is some increase to the commercial tax base right away, and certainly in the long term, a significant increase in the commercial tax base. And in addition to the creation of jobs in town and all the resulting potential increases in value to the town from that. So those are the reasons that the EDC is asking the select board to support this and to recommend that the town negotiate the TIF. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I wanted to acknowledge that Catherine and I and Fran and the town manager had earlier conversations about this TIF. And one of the things we recognize that I'll just sort of set aside for the future is that we don't have a policy on when TIFs are appropriate. And I'm looking forward to that conversation, and I'm hoping we get a lot of help from the EDC on thinking that through. In the meantime, this seems like a poster child for what's appropriate for a TIF. It's, you've been working, in a site without a roof, and you're building a building and you're hiring new people. It's exactly the kind of increase in, economic development that we're looking to see, and it's on Knox Trail, which is, let's see, how would I describe it? Hardly a bastion of biodiversity. It's been paved over and treated kind of roughly over the years. So we're not damaging any natural resources by encouraging this. But that's all I had to say. There might be other board members that had questions or comments, or David.
Thank you. As I think you mentioned, we've heard about Natural Stonewall Solutions here before. It's really a unique product. I think we use it on, there's one installation on High Street, I believe, for a retaining wall for a sidewalk. I think the fact that it is a unique product and it kind of brings notoriety to town, which is kind of fun. I think that this program is, we really can't lose, especially with Natural Stonewall Solutions, because they're a growing company. The tax reduction is only on the new investment, which we want to encourage, and it's magnified by state aid or a state tax break. So I think it's a really good program, and I'm definitely in favor.
Other comments, questions? That suggests that we have some motion that might be that the town enter into negotiations with Natural Stonewall Solutions to provide a local TIF, tax incentive financing agreement, with the goal of getting it into the 2024 spring town meeting warrant.
I just want to take questions after we.
Yeah, we'll definitely take questions. I just want to get a motion on the table so we have something concrete to discuss.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded, and there might be comments from the public or from the board members.
Thank you, Tom Beals. I think this is a terrific proposal. I'm a great admirer of stone walls. I notice them as I cycle around town. I do have a sort of a philosophical question, and I think, Mr. Chair, you brought this up. In taxation, when you reduce the taxes on one entity, that reduction is made up by all the others. How do you avoid, when you award a TIF, how do you avoid the critic who brings up the phrase crony capitalism, who says, why this company? Why not some other company?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the question that I wonder if the first speaker might address,
Mhm.
or the business development. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. We might be able to construct answers, but we do have, two folks here who might also have answers. So, and Kevin, you've had your hand up patiently for a little bit, so you might have something to say, and you might also be able to address some of Tom's questions.
Yeah. So the first thing that I wanted to share, and I neglected to mention in my comments, is for whatever the duration is that ultimately is negotiated on a TIF, be it 5 years or 10 years or 20 years, which is the max, at the end of that period, it is if no TIF was ever negotiated. So at the end of that period, the business does indeed pay essentially the full fare, freight for taxation for, from that day on, until the end of time, essentially, or until the next TIF. So I just want to make sure that that was clear to everybody, because, I think the graphics showed that, but I didn't speak to it. Relative to the gentleman's comments about, taxation and the taxes being distributed, essentially it's up to every community to try to define like the culture of their community. Do they want to be recognized as a community that strikes that balance between being business friendly and also being sensitive to the tax burden on its taxpayers? And so that certainly is a conversation that your board should have, particularly if, as you indicated, Mr. Chair, a desire to establish a TIF policy. A lot of communities do have them, and I'm happy to talk to you, offline and suggest some that you might reach out to if you do, want to put together just a standard TIF policy. But really, it comes down to, the broader message that you want to send to the business community, and that balancing act between, servicing, the individuals in the bedroom community and then the businesses that also offset, tax liability. So there's no silver bullet or magic answer there. It's finding what works best for your community. And every community is different. Some communities almost never participate in the program. But I will share that of the 351 communities in the Commonwealth, I believe the number is 138 or 158. Don't quote me, but it's right around in that range, have participated in the program in the last 8 years. So, probably about half the communities in the Commonwealth have participated. So it is, a very popular program. And again, the range is extreme from, very slight to very generous. And that just really comes down to your community culture.
Thanks. Are there other answers for Tom's question? David?
So I know for me, the difference in this as opposed to another kind of tax subsidy is this basically just reduces future taxes. So if the investment doesn't happen, there is no reduction of taxes. Basically, it kind of subsidizes the investment a little bit. And in some cases, I don't know exactly in this case, it's not possible for a business to be successful with the investment without a few breaks. And the few breaks that needed to get to the end. I mean, I know this business is difficult to categorize. It's a kind of a unique business. But I know for other businesses in town, local restaurants as opposed to chain restaurants, it's almost impossible for them to establish themselves without some kind of break. Some of them get breaks from their landlord, right? Some landlords agree to have no rent for the first year or something like that. And so it doesn't reduce anybody's taxes. It doesn't reduce the taxes that exist right now. The taxes that exist now stay the same. It just reduces the taxes on the investment going forward for a while. And so to me, that's different. So there's nothing for other taxpayers to make up because the taxes they paid last year, they're going to pay next year. It's just kind of like deferring some for a while so that the investment can happen. Anyway, that's the way I think of it.
First Fran?
Just add one more thing in that you did put a huge amount of money into the new building initially. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. And part of, I think, what limits current people to acquire or request a TIF is there's certain buckets you have to follow. And one of those was, yes, as you mentioned, we're on Knox Trail Road, which is no peach. And we dug up that raw land, basically unusable, a low taxable parcel. Actually had to get it subdivided and to a point where we could build something. And then, yes, we invested over $2 million that you will now, as Kevin said, ultimately tax me on. So we're bringing a lot of new tax revenue to the table. And this TIF is just to reduce some of that increased tax revenue that I'm going to give to the town on top of all the job creation, and that we hope that this can, continues in that path. But yes, this is a little break that we were asking for after spending an incredible amount on a very specific, unusable piece of land. So this wasn't like a, restaurant remodel this was taking raw land, adding capital, and resulting in a, fantastic new facility.
Matt, is there someone online that wants to say something?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I believe this is Tara from earlier. They should be able to speak now.
Hi, it's Tara calling. Thank you. I very much like this proposal. I would urge the town to create a template, a formula, something so that's very easy for people to engage in a program like this, because again, it doesn't reduce their taxes. It doesn't increase our taxes. It just reduces temporarily future taxes, and we win, and it's only a little bit. And so, anyway, but I would like it to be limited. Hopefully, no offense to like what we talk about wanting in the various town documents, restaurants and small businesses, shops, and things like that. That we say that we want, and then we invest in more industrial type businesses. So I love the idea. I thank Julie for preparing it and the EDC for developing it and the applicants for coming forward. And thank you so much.
Thank you. That might be a fine place to end this. We have a motion on the table. Are there any more final comments? No? All those in favor, please say yes or aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous. So town manager will work with you on coming up with a TIF with the goal of getting it ready for the 2024 annual town meeting.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. The next item is called Approve Recommended Partial Removal of Bellows Farm Mill Dam and Authorize Chair to sign Letter of Support for Dam and Seawall Grant Application. And John, I think you promised me a crisp presentation, given the hour, so take it away.
I did. We have a team that we've been working on for this project. Corey York, our Public Works Director, leads all of our dam efforts. And he's brought in a consultant, SLR, and they have a brief presentation to describe the feasibility study that we've conducted on this dam and our recommendations for moving forward. And we hope to get out of this meeting your support on a letter to the Dam and Seawall Grant Program. So I'd like to welcome Jim Murak and Corey.
Yes, good morning or evening. Thank you. I just wanted to take a quick intro before they get into the details. Just quick background. Back a little before 2010, the state reached out and had deemed this a low-risk, low-hazard dam, and that we were required to do inspections, and they're done on a 10-year cycle. So we had done an initial inspection back around 2009, and I had assisted with the Natural Resource Director then, and the structure itself was deemed in poor condition. And so then over the course of that permit period in 2020, the previous Natural Resource Director did a follow-up inspection that was required around 2020. It was deemed to be in unsafe condition with the SARE recommendations. So at that point, we've been working on trying to figure out what the next best steps would be for the community. So we had contracted with SLR to help us work through those sort of ideas and details and come up with what we have here tonight. So I'll hand that over to them and they can go through the details with you. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Corey. I'll say good evening to the board, to the members of the public, to Corey. Thank you for the introduction. There's two of us on the line tonight. My name is Jim Murak. I'm with SLR Consulting. I'm a water resource engineer, and I'm joined by my colleague, Genevieve Sezin, who is also a water resource engineer. We were the design engineers for the 53 River Street Dam removal. It's happening. It's underway now. It's on the southern end of town, nearing completion. And that dam also was found to be structurally unsafe, similar to this one. We were asked by Corey to evaluate this dam, to identify alternatives to either repairing, modifying, or removing the dam to mitigate the hazard of it failing under an uncontrolled collapse. It has already started to fail, as this photo shows, and so we've identified some options that we're going to explain to you tonight. Genevieve was the primary author of the feasibility study. We submitted our full study on February 12th. That is available for anyone who'd like to review the entire thing, but as you mentioned, select member, it's getting late in the evening, so we promise a 5-minute presentation from this point forward. So Genevieve, go ahead, take it away.
All right, thank you. So as Corey and Jim mentioned, previous safety inspections that were conducted in 2020 found that the primary spillway of this dam has eroded from 9 feet to about 13 feet. The concrete training walls show signs of deterioration, undermining, significant cracking, and detachment from their footings or underlying masonry. Tree and shrub growth on top of and adjacent to the earthen embankment was observed, and seepage was seen along the entire length of the earthen embankment. And the dam will need to be either repaired or removed in order to meet safety standards in accordance with Massachusetts Office of Dam Safety. The purpose of the study was to determine the feasibility and cost of 4 potential approaches. We looked at dam repair, full dam removal, partial dam breach, and dam lowering with a rock ramp for fish passage. The study also sought to gather and evaluate information needed to help the town of Acton make a decision about future management of the dam. After a period of data collection, which included site visits, wetlands mapping, sediment probing and investigation. We evaluated 4 different alternatives based on hydraulics, public safety, restoration of natural river processes, fish passage, protection of wetland areas, evaluation of upstream infrastructure, recreational use, and cost. Alternative 1 was dam repair, which included elimination of seepage through the upstream face of the embankment through toe drainage or sealing, placing and compacting supplemental fill where needed in the embankment to fill any low points or areas of erosion, installation and repair of stone masonry armoring, and also clearing of vegetation from the earthen embankments within 20 feet of the dam structures, and reconstruction of the spillway and repair of the breach. This alternative would be less expensive initially, but requires ongoing maintenance and repairs as the dam continues to age. It would not restore fish passage and would require creation of an emergency action plan. The dam would not be removed from jurisdictional requirements of 302 CMR 10, but it would allow the impoundment to remain accessible to small boats. Alternative 2, we looked into full dam removal, which would be the most expensive alternative and includes removal of the full primary embankment and the embankment that extends along the canal, and would fill the canal in order to restore the project site to pre-dam conditions. And in this alternative, the impoundment would be drawn down and allowed to revegetate. Alternative 3 was a partial dam breach, and this alternative includes removal of about a 70-foot section of the embankment and creation of a bankfull channel to tie into the historical channel that was previously running through the impoundment. This would lower water surface elevations within the impoundment, remove Bellows Farm Mill Dam from jurisdictional requirements of 302 CMR, restore fish passage, and would allow the historical canal to remain in place. Alternative 4 was dam lowering with a rock ramp, which included removal of about 50 feet of the embankment. And to give an idea what this would look like, the photo on the bottom left is looking upstream towards the existing dam. And the photo on the right is a rendering of what it would look like to construct a rock ramp for fish passage up through the remaining dam. This alternative would leave the dam subject to jurisdictional requirements of 302 CMR 10. It would also allow the historical canal to remain. So we looked at costs for all 4 alternatives. The dam repair would be between 2 and 2.7 million, depending on what type of approach would be necessary to repair seepage along the embankment. Full dam removal would be approximately 3 million. Partial dam breach would be 1.9 million, and dam lowering with the rock ramp would be about 1.5 million. After looking at each alternative and their costs, we are recommending the partial dam breach, which is less expensive than full removal or dam repair, but would still allow fish passage and remove the jurisdictional requirements of the dam. And we also, in our feasibility report, outline some next steps, which include public outreach, regulatory permitting, historic and archaeological site surveys, additional sediment sampling to confirm the preliminary sampling that was done as part of this assessment, hydraulic modeling, which would be extended upstream in order to evaluate dam stability and spillway capacity, and creation of final design plans and construction documents. So at this point, we could take questions. We did receive a couple questions before the meeting that we could briefly address. One question was regarding the recreational use of the Trail Through Time system, which is located along the impoundment and downstream of Bellows Farm Mill Dam. The majority of trails are downstream of the dam and would not be impacted by modification or removal of the dam. However, the canal by Robbins Mill Dam, which is shown in the
Oops, all we see is...
Did everyone lose Jenna Bay?
Yes.
Oh, boy. Apologize for that. She's also sharing her screen with the presentation. I can finish her thought here, talking about the Trail Through Time. Really the only effect that we would see modification to the dam having on sort of the historical character of this area was the subject pedestrian bridge. Genevieve was briefly back and now she's gone. The photo of the pedestrian bridge that was shown is going over the head race canal, and because of the lowering of the water surface upstream of the dam, that would likely be dry in most conditions, most normal day conditions. Occasionally might see flow during elevated precipitation events and floods in Schober Brook, but we wanted to at least address that question now, and it looks like Jenna Bay might be back. There was one other question we had received ahead of the meeting. I'll switch it back to her if she's able to.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not sure what happened. Bounced out there for a minute. Jim, had you addressed the well or the?
Nope, the other question was about the upstream well field, Marshall Wells.
Right. So you can see here, Bellows Farm Mill Dam locate, nope, sorry.
You're not sharing yet.
Is the slide showing or?
Not anymore.
Not for me.
Okay, hold on.
There it
Here
goes.
we go.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. So where that yellow star is shown is approximately where Bellows Farm Mill Dam is located, with Marshall Well Field being to the north. In the feasibility assessment, we recommend extending the hydraulic modeling further upstream in order to evaluate any potential drawdown areas farther from the dam, and could include the Marshall well fields and other wells of interest in that analysis to make sure that there would be no adverse impacts.
Thank you, Jenna. Yeah, unless there's any other, if there's certainly other questions this evening, but I would recommend as one of the next steps, and we do mention this in our full study, that we have a public engagement plan put forth where concerned citizens can come forward and identify individual pieces of infrastructure or properties that might be of concern to them that they would like to be analyzed, and sort of up to the town how they'd like to handle it. I know for 53 River Street we had a committee, sort of an ad hoc committee of concerned citizens who participated and sort of corralled all the different inputs, but those are just some ideas that we had, and we went over a little 5 minutes. I'm sorry about that, but we're done.
Thanks so much. There might be questions from select board members. I see David with his hand up.
Hi, thank you so much. I just have a few questions. The breach proposal, if I remember from reading the document, that removes 70 feet of the earthen dam. Is that amount necessary to make sure that the remaining pieces only back up 15 acre feet or less than 6 feet in 100-year events?
Yes, that was what was necessary in order to meet the Office of Dam Safety requirements to remove jurisdictional requirements.
Oh, right, okay. And then that means the rock ramp backs up more than 15 acre feet or is more than 6 feet deep in 100-year events. How deep, Well, I guess I have two questions. How deep would the impoundment be normally with the rock ramp? And how deep is it in 100-year events?
I would need to open up our modeling in order to check that.
So you could send me that response later. I mean, I know
Sure.
because you said that ODS would still need justification. We know it has to be more than those limits, right? And
Right.
one final question. Why did you recommend the partial breach instead of the rock ramp?
Partly due to fish passage concerns and also because of the ongoing dam requirements.
Understood. Thank you.
Right, so allowing the dam to stay as a regulatory structure and installing the rock ramp downstream will still subject it to Office of Dam Safety Regulation. So there still will be some liability associated with it as far as its continued maintenance, its continued inspections on a recurring basis, and if there is any sort of issues, any uncontrolled failures, debris, captures, any sort of deterioration of structures, that'll all continue in perpetuity. The partial dam breach, as you mentioned, gets it right below the Office of Dam Safety thresholds, so that's the minimum work required to achieve that goal. And it also, managed to achieve the other goals as well. But similar to 53 River Street, when we did sort of that, that sort of value engineering, I'll call it, where we analyzed iteratively, the hydraulics of that dam to try to leave as much of it as we could, more from a historic and archaeological interest. We did the same thing here preemptively, and this was the result of that analysis.
Thank you.
This is Jim again. During your research, did you run across this vision from a local historic group to do a little bit of restoration work on the existing canal, enough to be able to show people how, hydropower was used? Does that ring a bell? Did that end up making its way into your eyes?
Not specifically, though we did see all of the great interpretive signage that's out there right now.
Okay. Yeah, it's the same group, the Trail Through Time group. So this is the only factor that has me hesitating about this, which is the idea that if we could maintain the water flow through the existing canal, we would have the opportunity in the future, when we could find the funding, to do a little historic exhibit there about, showing how, how the old hydroelectric used to work. It's an old mill. It's one of the few intact, raceways that we have. There's that vision, which I'll forward you the emails I have on that, just in case it's part of, what would go into the next phase. Although I'll say, when I first heard this idea about restoring about repairing the dam in order to have this historic aspect, I was very torn, because I'm also, it feels like we have a big priority on restoring habitat. If we can actually get the, more fish to come back up here, that's a big win. I'm wondering what the downstream dam situation is. Are there existing problems downstream that we would need to resolve before we really saw a lot of new, fish being able to take advantage of there not being a dam?
We don't have that data ready for prepared for this.
Okay.
Especially as it relates to anadromous fish, that would be of huge concern, is to make sure that there's unobstructed access to the ocean, right? Because that's where they like to come back and forth.
Yeah.
This, I think we're a little far inland for that, so this really is more freshwater species and habitat fragmentation, but we didn't specifically look at the connectivity up and down to really determine that. But we can.
Okay, well, I think those are the two factors that I'm thinking of when I'm trying to decide, whether to agree with this particular recommendation or not. Dean?
Yeah, initially, when I read through the report, I was favoring the rock ramp, but as I looked at this a little bit more, I think the dam breach is probably the best route, in my opinion. Most important to me is that the canal will remain in a dry situation. I mean, 53 River Street, we're trying to reproduce a canal, so this, at least we've got the authentic canal, will still be retained. You will have the fish passage will be enhanced, and importantly, we're outside the jurisdictional requirements. So although this is a little more expensive, I think this is, in my opinion, probably the best route to follow.
David?
So I would suggest that we approve this proposal today and move forward to the Office of Dam Safety, and then decide in the future between the rock ramp and the full breach. And since the rock ramp is less expensive, the Office of Dam Safety and anybody else is not going to complain if we spend less money. And we make that decision later after a little bit more public input. The canal in the breach situation, it's my understanding, would be dry. And I think dry would be within quotes. Basically, it's going to be muddy. And, I had a concern in River Street and a concern again here that it just becomes, because it's depressed, becomes a collector for trash. And maybe fill an outline like the River Street Park will have makes sense if we go with the full breach, so you can see where the canal was. In the case of the rock ramp, my understanding from reading the report is it would have flow in high water conditions and not at other times. And so then to your point, I mean, if that's the route we want to take in the future, but before we actually start construction, you can see the canal working, the raceway working. So, I mean, I think we should get some public input before we're choosing between those last two. But I think that for the application for the ODS grant, and then we can see what they grant us, right? If they grant us only $1 million, well, we might want to choose the lower price thing. If they grant us $2 million, we can decide what we want. Anyway, that's what I would defer the final decision based on some public input sessions.
Is that a viable route forward, to not have to proceed to the grant application without a specific best path or a favorite path? I guess that's a question for James or for John.
I couldn't speak for the grant reviewers specifically, but I would say that in my experience in applying for grant funding, those who administrate that funding and review the applications are charged with reporting to their superiors on an annual basis on the success rate of the funding that they distributed. And they typically will give more weight to an application that has a stronger sense of realization, more detail, and therefore, in their opinion, a better chance at fully being implemented. That's all I can say is just speak in general terms.
Thank you. Well, it seems like we have a possible path ahead of us. Oh yeah, please, Fran.
Just to go back to the screen with the choices of the.
Yeah, can we go back to that summary screen with the four choices?
Just from, is that okay?
Yeah, that'd be great. Let's do that if we can. Yeah, thank you. Right, so I think my main, well, let's figure out if we have a motion. David, you're talking about proceeding with the grant application, but keeping open whether we do 2, 3, or 4, or were you narrowing us down to 2 choices?
3 or 4 appealed to me because of price and, the full dam removal removes quite a bit of the, much more of the whole earthen part, removes everything.
Yeah.
Right,
yeah.
and so, and dam repair just continues to back up a lot of water, right, which makes it a safety issue. Choice 4 backs up some water, and I asked her if she would send me how much it actually backs up normally and in 100-year events. So the danger is much less, right? And choice 3 essentially backs up no water. So, before we make a motion, I think we should hear from everybody as to what their preferences are. I was going to ask the Office of Dam Safety go into it with a proposal of asking for 1.9 million to do the breach, and then based on some public input, if we want to go back to them later and say we'd like to do a rock ramp instead. I think we have some credibility here because we have one successfully completed project, so it's not like we're taking money and not doing anything with it. Anyway, I think it's hard for us just right here tonight to make the choice between 3 and 4. For me, 1 and 2 are not good choices, but 4 might be a good choice. We just have to get some public input and think about it some more.
Can I ask
Thanks.
one?
Yeah, Fran, you
question?
got questions?
What is the positive or negative of being in the jurisdictional requirements of, yeah, I know you could answer that.
So it's just more work, right? So
Right.
The partial breach means it's not effectively not a dam anymore.
Right.
And
Okay.
so the Office of Dam Safety doesn't have to watch us and we don't have to
Okay.
report anything. It's just easy, right?
Yeah.
After that, we don't have to do anything.
Right.
4 is essentially a little dam.
Yeah, yeah.
And so we have to, there's a standard by which if it backs up, I'm pretty sure the standard is 15 acre feet or 6 feet in height in a 100-year event. So if it backs up more than that, it's watched by the Office of Dam Safety. And so the choice 4 must back up more than that. But it's not going to back up as much as it gets backed up now.
Thanks. Alyssa?
So I would prefer option 3 primarily because it's the recommended option from the folks who are the experts. Also, because it maintains some of the historic infrastructure, but doesn't build anything new. And I recognize that this is my singular opinion, but I didn't find the rendering attractive. And this particular area, you can see from the pictures, it's a magical place. And it's not just the nature part of it, is the historic aspects. Like Dean mentioned, it's important that the canal remains instead of trying to create an impression of where the raceway was. And there's a lot of other structures there, indigenous and the foundation from the Wheeler House. And I love walking on the bridge and the embankment and looking at those, retaining, I don't think they're called retaining walls, but the stone walls that line there. So I think that, first of all, removing it from the jurisdiction makes it easier, and second of all, we're not constructing something new that's going to be, the kiosks are new, obviously, and the parking lot is new, but I think we should limit ourselves in adding any new structures to this area.
3 as well. Yeah.
David?
I don't have an objection with 3, but I did want to clarify 2 things. One is 3, there'll be no water in the canal, and we'll have a decision as to whether we fill it or not. Like, if we could fill it with a different colored thing, or?
Yeah, I understand that it's going to be dry, it's just still going to remain, and I don't have a concern about it filling up with trash, and I would not be in favor of filling it
Okay.
with dirt,
And,
yeah.
and the other thing, the rock ramp, just to make sure that it's understood, is underwater most of the time. So it's like a waterfall.
Mhm.
Okay. It's an ugly waterfall. No, I'm just explaining that it's not,
Mhm. Dean, are you feeling inclined to, I remember what you said, but not well enough.
Yeah, initially I was looking towards the rock ramp, you know, for cost point of view, and it would be nice to have a little water flow through there, but looking at it more carefully, I think it's really important for us to eliminate this dam from any jurisdictional requirements. We don't know how often we're going to end up having to revisit this, depending upon, the state bureaucracy. And, I think we've got an able group of land stewards that, if any kind of trash might happen to get into that dry raceway, I think it could be handled pretty quickly. It's not like it's really close to a road where there's going to be, bottles and cans and plastic bags blowing into it. It's fairly remote. So I think on balance, I favor the option number 3. And I think it's also important that we do the best job we possibly can to look for a state grant on this. And it seems like if we're really firm with the route we want to follow, it's better than saying, well, we might go one way or the other.
So I can see I'm in the minority here, and I think it's because of my allegiance to, the old trail through time and its vision, the notion of having water run through there and being able to have something that shows how that actually works is attractive to me. But I'm very comfortable with being outvoted on this one. I'm seeing I'm not persuading a lot of people. And at least with the partial dam breach, like I said, the canal stays there even though it's dry, and there still might be an opportunity for some, historical interpretation there about, this is where the water would have flowed, this is what it would have done, this is what this rock work looks like. An earlier attempt to restore the rock work was stopped for precisely this reason, that because they didn't know if the water would suddenly be rushing through there at full speed, or if it was going to stop, or the stonemasons didn't know how to proceed until the dam issues had been settled. So at least if we go ahead with a partial dam breach, it'll be settled, and then things can proceed from there. I forget whether there was already a motion in mind for this particular action. Great.
I move that we ask the town manager to move forward with an ODS application for a partial dam breach at the Bellows Farm dam.
Does that satisfy what you need to do to move forward? Well, that's great. And one question, let's do the vote first, then I'll have a question. That's a motion. A second would be good.
Yeah, I was thinking authorized chair to sign letters.
Oh, yeah, so the second part is authorize the town manager to sign that letter of
Oh, I hadn't
support?
quite finished, and authorize the
Okay.
chair to sign the letter of support. for the
Okay,
application.
that's what I thought you meant to say. Thank you.
Second.
Yeah. Okay, that's been moved and seconded. Any more discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Nay, that's 4-1. Let's go do it.
Thank you guys for your time.
So
Happy
great to have you
answer
here.
any other questions.
Thank you for waiting here.
Thank you.
Virtually, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Okay. Approving, the number 10 is approve withdrawal from Acton Health Insurance Trust. It's a pretty simple one. We might have thought we'd already done this, but this is one little piece of the puzzle we hadn't formally done. John, you want to just?
Thank you. As discussed at previous meetings, we're transitioning our employees and retirees to the Health Insurance Trust, out of the Health Insurance Trust into a new trust called Maya. It's a two-step process, and so this is just a motion that we prepared and put in the packet to confirm our intention is to withdraw from the Acton Health Insurance Trust. And if there are any questions, I'm happy to address them.
David's got a question.
Yes, withdrawing doesn't affect the run out of the trust, does it?
No, we're proposing, or we intend to keep within the trust to fulfill our financial obligations until they are completed.
And any other questions? No? So we do have the following motion provided for this request. Okay, you're saying, let's read this, or you're in favor of it? Okay.
Since you saddled me with the health insurance trust.
It would be entirely
I would like to
appropriate
make this
that our
motion.
HIT liaison make this motion.
I was worried I was going to lose my house, folks. I move to approve the withdrawal from the Acton Health Insurance Trust and provide written notice of withdrawal to the trust no later than March 31st, 2024, and to join the Massachusetts Interlocal Insurance Association, MIA, for the purposes of offering employees and non-Medicare eligible retirees health insurance coverage effective July 1, 2024.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any other discussion? No. All those in favor, please say yes or aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
I thought I heard 4. What did you say? Okay. Okay, no. That's 5 yeses and 5 ayes. And I'm glad I can still hear well enough to know that I didn't hear 2 ayes to my. Yeah. Wake up. Okay, we got 5. That's unanimous. Okay. This next one, number 11, approve policy regarding waiving compensation for appointed positions. John, could you remind us how we got here?
Sure, there was some confusion in Town Hall as it relates to officials that are appointed when their position comes with compensation. Some volunteer positions, such as registrars, are in Mass General Law says they are to get paid a certain amount. And this is making it crystal clear that, or we're proposing to make it crystal clear that a volunteer or an appointed person may waive that compensation if they would like to. And so the policy may not have been clearly written in the packet, but I'm happy to share it with you right now, if that's helpful.
Yes. So that we would know exactly what we were
Yes.
voting on?
So the policy would be to allow appointed officials to waive compensation if they choose.
Very simple. Would anyone like to make a motion along those lines? Oh, so moved then. I'll just get it into conversation here. Is there a second?
A second.
Okay. Now there might be conversation about this topic. I'll just say, yeah, this did initiate from the problem with the Board of Registrars, and this is part of the fix. Any other comments or questions? Yes, John.
I wonder if the word appointed is necessary. And if I were to revise what I just said, just say allow officials employed I already lost it, sorry.
No, that's fine. I think that would make sense because then it would make it legal that, for example, one of our board members would not be receiving compensation as, so from time to time, board members have declined to be paid, and it would clarify that that was okay. David?
Is it just elected and appointed officials then? Is there any other category?
Yeah, that's a good question. I can't think of another one. Another category, rather.
I would offer a friendly amendment to change it to elected and appointed officials.
Great. I certainly accept that.
I'll accept my own thing.
Okay.
As a second.
Okay, getting a little sloppy here. It's okay. We can focus in. Okay, so we've got a motion and we've got a second. Any more comments or questions? Any comments from the world out there? No. All those in favor, please say yes or aye. Yes.
Aye.
That's all 5 of us. We like this policy. It's been approved.
There are 6 people online.
Okay, we're down to 6 people. Thanks for hanging in there, people. Okay, we have a brief update on the CPC recommendations for town meeting. I think Dean is also going to send us a complete thing, but you've got this to get the gist. It would be great to get a sense.
I did, the planning staff puts together a spreadsheet that has all of the details in it, and I did send it along to the town manager and suggested that we forward it to all the members. So that's floating around somewhere out there. If not, I can send it again. So CPC completed the deliberations last week, are making a recommendation that's being formalized, and we'll vote on it next week. But just briefly, we had a total list of requests of $3,225,000. We had a total sum available of $1,674,000. I'm rounding here. So we recommended expenditures of $1,668,000. Of those totals, we have to put it in several buckets. What's being recommended for town meeting, just under 33% will go towards open space. Just under 24% will go for community housing. A little bit over 15% will go for historic preservation. 23% will go towards recreation projects. And 4.26% will go to administration. Looking through this, there were 2 projects in particular that got 0 funding. Everyone else got something. Obviously, in order to meet the budget, a lot of people got a lot less than they were hoping for. So I can go through the list of the allocations or not, depending upon how much time.
I'm happy to wait for the printout to see the details. There might be specific questions or comments from board members. It's on our agenda, so we can talk about it. David?
Is there a decision we have to make?
No, this is just
Okay,
an update in case
I
we
could
haven't seen it.
also wait to see that.
Okay.
Yeah, the way this works, there's no decision for the select board to make. It'll go to town meeting with the CPC recommendation. And at town meeting, projects can be taken off the list, be not funded, or but nothing can be added and nothing can be increased. So that's it.
Right. Thanks for the reminder, and thanks for the great work of the committee. That's tough work, especially in these years when there's twice as much requested. But it still makes for better decisions when there's more requests than there are funding. At least I know that lets you make choices, which is good. Okay, let's talk parking. Number 13 and 14 are related. I'm just going to mention, well, let's do one at a time. 13, approve reserved parking rates for both Maple Street lots and Jones Field lot through June 30th, 2024. So this is a relatively short-term decision before we get to the pilot program stuff in the next item. So John, how will we learn about this?
So I was at the parking lot on Thursday, the Commuter lot, and it was mostly full except for the resident parking sticker area, which is, I think, good news. Thursday, the traffic in Boston is heavier Tuesday to Thursday, from what I understand, but it's nice to see people taking the train again. So we'd like to continue ramping back up with how we do the reserve parking on the other side, and just extend, based on the motion in the packet, for another 3 months. What's listed there is the pricing, and then we have another item I wanted to talk about under the next topic.
Okay. Does anyone have that document right in front of them and want to read that motion? Especially, I don't know, anyone that wants to. David? Oh, either way.
Move to continue the reserved parking rates for both Maple Street lots at 120, am I reading right?
Yes, you got it.
120 per month, and the Jones Field lot at $50 per month through June 30th, 2024.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. There might be additional comments or questions from board members. There might be comments or questions out in the world among those 6 people that are still online. No? Okay, great. All those in favor of continuing these rates, please say yes or aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay.
Just Mike.
Sorry, on to this interesting pilot program idea.
Thank you. As we continue to look at how our parking program operates, I certainly observed on Thursday that the reserved lots on Maple Street are very much underutilized currently. And given that that area is, we're hoping that it continues to ramp back up. But in the meantime, we were wondering whether the board would be interested in allowing us to try a pilot program where we have up to 10 spaces in between those 2 Maple Street lots set up as daily parking spots, just as if they were on the other side. And that you would go, just like if you're in the city sometimes, you just go, you read the sign, and you can use your app to put the number in. We have the capability to do that with our existing software system, and we wanted to try it out and wanted to see what you thought of that.
There might be questions or comments about that idea. David?
So I think this is a good idea. The parking usage, it continues to recover after the pandemic. I've been by the parking lots, especially the big parking lot, a number of times because it's becoming more and more full again, which is great. But the evidence we're seeing is that the nature of parking has changed. It used to be, the reason why we had these reserved spaces is that, the parking used to completely fill by 7:15. And some people needed to do things like drop off a child at childcare and then take the train in. So we allowed them, it was an extra cost thing, but you could reserve a parking space and you could get there at 8:30 and still have your space. That seems to be not necessary anymore. No, so we might as well use these for, people in town, surrounding towns, to use on a daily basis. So I think we might as well use the spaces we have rather than have them be empty.
Any other thoughts or comments about this? No. Then a motion would be called for. Oh, John, you're noticing it. Hit the little button again.
I just want to clarify that these would be set up at a premium compared to the other side. Partially to reflect that it could be perceived as a better spot. And it also maybe would encourage people to say, hey, I really like this. Maybe I'll get one of the reserve spaces so I can just come here whenever I want.
So, David, would you like to make this motion here?
Move to establish a pilot program to create up to 10 daily commuter parking spaces at 1 Maple Street or 19 to 21 Maple Street at a rate of $8 effective May 1st, 2024.
Any final questions or comments?
Second.
Okay, oh yeah, even better. Moved and seconded. Again, any other questions or comments? No? All those in favor, please say yes or aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous. Okay, let's have that pilot program. It'll take a couple months for it to get together, so for those of you, for the 6 of you left online, don't go rushing out there expecting to see these right away.
You're always so surprised when it's unanimous.
Yeah. I think it's worth celebrating, or at least noticing. Thank you. Okay, next item and last item before consent and meeting eval, approved tax impact document for select board webpage. So I did a little research on this that I can report on to the board that might be a foundation for what we talk about. So at our last meeting, we talked about what the ALG had wanted, which was to have a way for people to see what was the more likely tax impact of the override, that is, the effect of a $6.6 million override with a $1.2 million unused tax levy. And we talked through the various aspects of it. Some points that were made were to make sure that the wording was clear, that the actual operating override amount was $6.6 million. Another thing that came up at the last minute, which Alyssa suggested and the rest of us nodded our heads to, was to remove the totals columns, because all you really need is previous tax amount and how much it would be increased under various circumstances. So I had thought where we ended up was assessed value, FY24, look at that table, increased, how much your taxes would increase without an override, how much your taxes would increase with an override, but minus the 1.2 in unused tax levy. What we got from the manager as a draft was different than that. And it was 2 documents rather than 1. So I heard from at least one select board member who said, "Oh, this doesn't seem right. Let's talk about it some more." I think first I had some questions, a couple of questions for John. So what you showed us was 2 documents. Is there a scenario in which you can imagine there would be just 1 document, or is it important for you to have both, or where were you at with that?
But yeah, my apologies if I misinterpreted direction. I think I might have been confused by this discussion that morning, and then maybe didn't clear it all the way through with what happened that night. That's why it's not fun having 2 meetings like that in the same bookending your day.
Yeah.
But I think we could certainly have 1 document. If that's what the board asked me to do, that's what we'll do.
The only other thing that I think we would, looking at the language there, in the top part, it seemed like we might want to add something to explain that the $1.2 million was not something we just made up, but it was part of the ALG plan based on the town and schools budget. That was the only change I could think of to the language there. Those of you who saw those drafts or had were there at the last meeting, are there other things you would add or subtract from that notion? David?
So I think it's really confusing for the public to have 2 documents.
Okay, great.
I think it's just very difficult. The second thing I would say is the the tax rates that have come out of the ALG work, that is the plan, right? The increase to the tax levy is not a plan to increase taxes. And it is extremely unlikely that that would happen this year. And in fact, and then the document that was out there said FY25 tax impact from the override, which is false, right? That's not in the plan, and it's extremely unlikely. So maybe it's necessary to say possible eventual impact of the increasing the tax levy and that impact. But I think that's just confusing. I mean, what's in the plan is the budgetary amounts that ALG has produced along with, from essentially the budgets created by the town and the schools.
Yeah, I think that's consistent with the agreement that we had reached at, whatever it was, 10:55 on 2 weeks ago on Monday night. So yeah, I totally get why it was hard for John to reflect that, but I think that is what we decided. Other thoughts? Alyssa, and then John. Oh, and then there's comments, okay. I'd like to hear from board members first. Oh, us, no.
It's still too confusing.
Yeah.
So I would agree with what David just said, except I think it would be confusing if we said potential possible, because it would also be inviting distrust. So this is the plan, this is what the tax impact will be for FY25. If you have your, this is your home value, look it up. And then the other column for the untaxed levy capacity, instead of defining that by saying potential, future, possible, people can just look up what untaxed levy capacity means. Or we can put a proper definition in there. Because I don't think we want anybody looking at this tax impact estimate and thinking, well, it could be this or it could be this other higher number. And different towns do it differently. I have some friends in Westford, in addition to the town manager, who are facing an override, and they are, the information that has been put together, I have to admit, I haven't gone to the town website to look at this to see if it's accurate, but the information that residents are putting together is that the $6.8 million override is going to be taxed, and then they're going to keep in an override stabilization fund. So people are upset, like, oh, you're taking it out of my pocket instead of letting me keep it in my pocket for another year. And that's not what we're doing in Acton, and I think that people need to know that. So we talked a lot here at the ALG meeting, the FinCom meetings. They talked about the psychology of the figure, right? So we were trying to get it to $100 a month so people could really, more than $100 was a more scary number. And the reason that this tax table is important is because, we're throwing out that $100 a month, that $1,200, but, if you look at the beautiful histogram, and add up all of the home values, when you say the average home value in Acton is $840,000, that you think average, middle of the road, but I added up all of those bars, and 70% of the homes in town are less than the average home value. So people really need to understand if they have, like me, I don't have an average home value. It's significantly less. I'm not going to see my taxes go up in FY25 by $100 a month. It's going to be much less. So I want folks to have this information, but I don't want to be wishy-washy and confuse them with anything that's not really likely.
Thank you. Dean.
Yeah, I think the important thing is that, although granted that is the plan, $5.4 million, and whatever that tax increase is going to be in your house this year, but I think, the other piece of it that people are focused on is, okay, so what are you going to do with that extra 1.2 million? Now, amongst ourselves, we know it's going to be untaxed capacity. But that does imply that at some point, your taxes will go up by that amount. And I think that's the real issue, is that, you know, when people go to vote on the override, they need to know exactly what the dollar value is. I really personally feel that it was a bad choice to ask for more money on an override than you actually intend to use. I know you don't want to have to go for another override next year, but I think everybody figures that this is just to avoid having to go for an extra override next year. But there's nothing to say, based on the financial situation in the town, that the override passes, things go up, you spend your 5.4 million, and you still get an extra $1.2 million that you could spend at some later point. That might not be enough to fill the gap that you need next year. We don't know that. So somebody could say, well, okay, you're going to take that 1.2 that you're holding in reserve, you're going to tax that, and you're going to ask for another override on top of that. And I think that's the problem with asking for more than you actually need. And I think it's going to be to the detriment of getting this override passed. I can't find the document that we're talking about, so I think I would like to see it on the screen so that we can take a look at the wording. And I think the public probably should be able to see the wording as well before we vote on this.
Yeah. So maybe without I don't want to focus on the column headings, but at least the opening text on the ALG version of your document. That would be great to see. And like I said, the only thing I thought to add was to add a sentence to explain where that $1.2 million came from. That it's part of the ALG plan. It accounts for the school and town's current budgets. That leaves this, $1.2 million. Yeah, please.
So in terms of this introductory paragraph, instead of 6.6 million with 1.2 million, it might be better to say which includes 1.2 million in excess levy capacity. So people don't add those two together and think that it's 7.8.
Yeah. Are you finding a way to bring okay, great. Yeah, so that's yes, that was the one the one that had the 1.2 million. So Alyssa's first suggestion is, instead of the word with, that change it in the subject line, change that to including, which includes.
Instead of which includes? Right, so people don't know what excess tax levy is.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. People, yeah, but. Sure.
So I guess I'm proposing to add a sentence after you define what excess levy capacity is, to say something about $1.2 million. This $1.2 million is calculated from the current town and school budgets, or the current town budget and Acton school assessment. something there just to say that it's, it's not a made-up number. The cars have room for a $1.2 million in excess levy capacity with a $6.6 million override, or have accounted for, yeah.
I might suggest you add something in there just to clarify that that 1.2 million could be taxed in future years.
Yeah, I think that might be just the right thing to explain. That it's not forever not taxed. So that could be an additional sentence after that one. This excess levy capacity could be used in future years, or it could be, yeah, something like that.
That's fine.
Yeah.
The fact that excess levy capacity is odd is only because we've been at the levy limit for the past 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, we sort of lost track of
We
it.
went for about 15 years
Mm-hmm.
with we're not at the limit. We had excess levy capacity every year, and we didn't tax it.
Yeah.
Even my first year on the board, we had excess levy capacity. It
Mhm.
wasn't very much. It was like $300,000, but we had some.
Yeah. I would just say it may be used in future years, period. Then we don't have to get into a long explanation of how budgets work. And so that seems like a great start here. Yeah. And then we talked with Alyssa's suggestion at the end of the meeting was to remove some of these columns and add an additional one. So let's see, that we would just have assessed value, the column A, increase without override, that's column B. Skip column C because people can calculate the total just by adding it to their current year tax bill. Oh, wait, do we have, yeah.
No, the
No.
column that I had suggested was, I think it was in the previous document, it was
Oh, right.
the FY24 tax bill.
Right,
and
that's
then
right,
we
so we
were
add
adding
one.
on.
Right. Right, that's right. FY24 tax bill,
And that would become the new column B,
Yeah.
right, in your suggestion?
right.
Yeah,
And-
so the first column is the value of the
Mhm.
home, and then the next column would be what your tax bill is
Mhm.
in FY24, and then the next column is the additional tax addition for FY25.
Yeah,
But
without
just
the
the
override.
increase.
Right,
So
increase without
for the average, I
override.
think it was 462.
Right.
And then the next one was, if the override passes,
Mhm.
then this is the additional on top of that without the override. And so you
Yeah.
just have to add up those two numbers to your FY24 tax bill.
Right, so which is sort of what column D is right now. It's got a lot of words, but that's the number you're looking for.
No, that's not if I'm understanding her
Oh, okay.
correctly. So she wanted, you can correct me at any time if I say something you didn't want. Column A gets left alone. A column gets inserted between A and B, which is the current tax bill for that value.
Mhm.
Column B becomes column C, but gets left alone.
Mhm.
Column C gets deleted.
Mhm.
Column D stays exactly the same way it is,
Mhm.
and column E gets deleted.
Yeah.
So there are 4 columns.
Yeah. So that's the proposal, that's the wording. You can imagine that, in implementing this, John might have small questions or concerns about little changes or wording changes. But this is what we're asking John to put on the website as the single document that's talking about tax impacts. Is that, am I getting that right? I'm looking for nods, I think, from people. Okay, great. Okay, and there's hands raised. So we've figured out our direction, but it would be good to hear from the public. Matt, why don't you let the people speak?
Of course. First one should be Charlie Cadlick. Charlie, you should be able to speak.
Hi.
Hi, Charlie.
Let's make this simple. I don't think there are more than 100 people in the whole town who have any idea what excess levy capacity means, and they're not going to try and figure it out from the spreadsheet. The simple fact is that the vote on the override is for 6.6 million. That's all you really need to know. The reason you're trying to make it a lower number is to increase the chances of this being favorably accepted by town vote at March 30th. So, not March 30th, April 30th. So, the simple way to present this, it's a $6.6 million general override. But how that money is used will be decided later. Leave it at that. That's the honest way to present it. Anything else is just manipulating the numbers, and there are not going to be many people who have any idea what this table, how to use this table or what it means, what the impact is. Several of you have already said this will increase. What you want to do is increase the chances of this being approved at the election. That's not the way I would do it. I understand that you probably are not going to agree with me, but the honest presentation of what the potential impact of this override is on your tax bill is 6.6 million. No other number. Any other number is just confusing the issue. So do it the simple way. You can explain to people later if you want to try to explain in a different format what excess levy capacity means, but I don't think many people have any idea or will have any idea with any kind of an explanation. ALG has spent a good part of an hour trying to figure it out. You've spent more than an hour last meeting, and you're spending a lot of time now trying to figure it out, which just proves that it's just too confusing to try and vote for one number but actually not use it. That's not the honest way to present it. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. Are there other people that have stuff to say? One more?
Yes, Mr. Chair, this is another raised hand. This is from a call-in user. They should be able to identify themselves and speak now.
Yeah, hi, it's Tara again. I had to hang up, and so then I'm joining again. I don't always agree with Charlie on everything. I do agree that it's confusing, and that the total is the total amount, whether it's granted this year or next year. It is, maybe you could say this year it's this and next year it's that, but to have a chart like this suggests that the second part, the next year part, the whatever it's called, the unused levy, that isn't even on this chart. So I agree that we need to be really upfront, and it is very confusing. Thank you.
Thanks. Well, I think we have a plan for now. I'm happy to entertain ideas about how to make it less confusing, but let's get something out there that at least expresses the shared agreement of the board about the information that needs to gets to be presented. Alyssa?
Yeah, I just want to follow up that what was, or maybe it still is, the original draft is dishonest because the top of the column says your FY25 estimated total tax bill with the override. So the board here is attempting to explain that the vote at the ballot is to authorize the town to tax, but for FY25, we won't be taxing to that full amount of 6.6 million. So we are attempting to be more honest. And yes, a bonus of that is that people will understand that their tax bill will not go up $1,333 next year if they have that average $840,000 home value. It will go up about $1,200. That is the honest tax impact.
Yeah, that's why I'm persuaded that this is a good way to do it. People will have the question of how much will my taxes go up next year, and this is the right way to estimate that.
I'm just wondering if we need the words, I mean, I understand that unused tax levy is confusing, but if we can remove unused tax levy from the column header of column D, so it's just the FY 2025 tax bill with the override, or with the $6.6 million override, because that I don't think we need to say excess tax levy there. It can just say with the override.
Yeah.
With the proposed override, with the override, just to not confuse things. And I agree with Alyssa that it's important to do it this way, because if we just did the full override, the amount, always in the past, first of all, we have had excess levy capacity in every single override that's passed has had excess levy capacity in it. And we don't know what we're going to do in future years. ALG's, what's being discussed right now is to use a third of that next year. Actually, my tendency would be to use none of that next year, because I think next year might be an easier year than the year after. But there's not full consensus on ALG yet on that. So we don't know where it's going in the future. And I think this is an honest way of doing it. It reflects the fact that we've cut the budget several times. Almost $5 million between the two entities from where the level service budgets were.
Thanks. Do we feel done? We feel like we've given John clear enough directions on the document that we'll create? John, do you feel like you have clear enough directions? I see you're still editing it, so I think you're not quite sure on, but.
I'm just trying to make the language consistent, because it says several things several times, so.
Okay.
I'm trying to be not as redundant, but also continue to be clear.
Okay.
Perhaps you could just run the final thing past Jim and me as the ALG reps, and if we have final comments. Is that?
Works for me, or, yeah.
Or not, I mean, just use your
If it
judgment.
works for the board.
If this is generally where you want to be,
Yeah.
this is generally where we'll stay.
Yeah.
Where we'll stay.
Sounds good.
Great. And I have a lot of trust in your ability to write things clearly and, not do it in a biased way. So, thank you.
And I just want to say thank you for all the work that went into this.
Yes, thank you very much. And there are now 7 people online.
Okay. We did that. I was sure this afternoon that we would not get to this one, and I was sad about that, but I really appreciate people hanging in there. And Dean doesn't even have to warn me about it being 10 o'clock for another 5 minutes. So let's start in on the consent items. Oh, yeah,
Mr.
sorry,
Chair?
Dean.
Are we going to take a vote on this?
We could, yes. So we don't actually have a formal motion, so let's construct that. So the construction is Oh, David, you've been doing such a good job tonight constructing motions. Do you want to try it again?
I move that we publish the format that the town manager had on the screen with wording improvements by the town manager.
The word second would be good
Second.
at this point? Okay, thanks. So there might be comments on that or questions on that? No? Okay. Let's take the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. All those abstaining, please say abstain.
Abstain?
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's start doing the consent, and then we can do a meeting eval. So we have these consent items, 16 through 24. I will read them. You can say hold or something like that if you want us to have a further discussion about it. Number 16, approve meeting minutes, February 5th and 26th, 2024. Approve policy outlining select board liaison responsibilities. Appoint James D. Conboy to the Board of Registrars with a term to end in February 2026. 19, appoint Greg Jarbo as Finance Committee Representative to the Economic Development Committee with a term to end on June 30th, 2026, and James Fuccione as Planning Board Representative with a term to end on June 30, 2027, both as associate members, and appoint David Cote to the Economic Development Committee with a term to end June 30th, 2026 as a full member. Accept donation from Direct Access Therapy for $500 to support the 2024 Summer Concert Series and events. 21, accept donation from Shirley Dinsmore for $5 to the Acton Dog Park Gift Fund. 22, appoint Ann Chang as a full member of the Department of Public Works Building Committee to expire upon completion of task when committee sunsets. 23, approve one-day alcoholic beverage license applications. Boston Events, Nara Park, August 18th, 2024. Cynthia Schubert Jet, Nara Park Wing 1, April 27, 2024. Acton Boxborough Class of 69, hooray, Nara Park Picnic Pavilion, August 17, 2024. And South Acton Congregational Church, 35 School Street, April 6, 2024. And finally, 24, authorize town manager to sign agreement with Paul Swiden, Silver Unicorn Bookstore, for the use of Spruce Street on April 20th, 2024. So perhaps there's a motion out there to approve consent items 16 through 24.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Okay. David and Alyssa have moved and seconded, and I think these are the kind of things that get no comments or questions, because that's why it's called a consent agenda. So all those in favor, please say yes or aye. Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Okay, that's everyone. Thank you. Meeting eval. Let's see, some comments. Hey, it's only 10. That's not too bad. We did get a little, at least I felt that I got a little bit tired or sloppy somewhere in the middle there, but we managed to recover. I did notice that I stood up and stretched at one point. That seemed to be a good thing. I can recommend that for everybody. People used to think that Peter Barry had a bad back because he was always getting up and stretching when he was on the select board. But as I was talking with him the other day, he explained, no, it just kept him alert. So it's good to know. It's a strategy that's worked for a long time. Let's see. I would be curious if you wanted, Dean, during your meeting eval, if you wanted to say something about what, if something went wrong in that last part about the tax impact document. I thought we were all on the same page, but I think you weren't quite, and I wish I had caught that earlier. What else? I think it was the first time I voted, my memory, as chair, to vote for to vote on against something when everybody else voted for it. I thought that was going to be difficult. Turned out not to be such a big deal. That's it for my meeting eval comments. Anyone else? David.
Good meeting. I don't know what we're going to do for the next hour. But I have things for the future. I was wondering if we could do town meeting assignments next time. That means we kind of need a draft warrant, but
Yeah, I think we will.
I think most of us will need a month to prepare and look at the presentations if we're going to record one. So or whatever. So usually we go through the list and say, assign this to, one person to this one, another person to that one. Similarly, I think next time we need to assign a person to the special town meeting article. Whether that should be the same as the person who does the zoning articles or whatever. Maybe we do the town meeting articles first or whatever you think, and then do the special town meeting article. And the final thing, I was wondering if Fran should ask the EDC to draft a TIF policy. If we're in agreement with that, we could.
Yeah, and we had, I've already forgotten his name. We had
Kevin.
Kevin was also offering to send us sample TIF policies.
A little message to you or
Yes,
to us.
yes, it said,
saying,
ask
reach
me,
out.
yeah,
reach
so
out.
that'd be good.
He also presented to the EDC.
Yeah.
So they know him.
Yeah.
They're good friends now. So, so I just thought and then that would be brought back whenever the EDC is done. Thank you.
Other comments on meeting eval? Dean?
Since you asked,
I did.
it became increasingly clear to me, in my opinion, with all due respect to the members of the board, that the discussion on this particular document had much more to do with how to get the override passed than to provide clarity to the taxpayers. And, just my perception, but, and at that point, I knew I was going to be on the wrong side of a 4-1, so I decided to be on the wrong side. It was an abstention. But I just think that it's really important that things get clarified, and we just went back and forth so many times with different columns, different wording, but it was still, the impetus, I think, was to get it passed and not necessarily to have it clear to the taxpayers. So I would prefer not to vote in favor of something like that.
Got it. Well, we'll have more chances to discuss the kinds of information that we want to present about the override. So I hope we'll have more opportunities to make sure that we are, doing this in a way that makes objective sense and that you're involved in that. David?
So I don't know if, Dean, you're interested or what the other members of the board think. I'd be happy to work with Dean or anybody, of course, it can only be two of us, on, I mentioned in the beginning, maybe this is awkward, but discussing and looking into a column or a way to say what the eventual impact could be. The eventual impact of the override, right? So it's the FY25 impact of the override and then the eventual, maybe there's a way to do that. I'd be willing to work with anybody on that.
Okay, we're not going to send the two of you off because that would be like creating a subcommittee, but, if some sub-quorum group of you happens to talk about that and comes back with an agenda item, happy to entertain it. Anyone want to make a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please say yes or aye. Yes.
Yes.
Aye.
Okay. That's it. Thanks, everybody.